Tonight on this story, we're taking you along for a ride on a MAX train in downtown Portland. This month marks the start of a new law that cracks down on drug use on public transit. It's a crisis riders have been facing for years.
It's pretty bad. You can usually smell it on the trains.
They really huddle themselves in corner seats.
So instead of providing medical care, what we're doing is sending them through a criminal justice system for just using on here.
How first responders are enforcing these new penalties. It's our big story tonight. January 1st marked the start of that new law, Senate Bill 1553, which makes using hard drugs on public transit a Class A misdemeanor, the most serious kind of misdemeanor, which means people can not only be arrested if caught, but they can face a more than $6,000 fine and 364 days in jail.
Wow. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think that there's a greater need for mental health care, not jail time, because that's already overloaded with other things.
I think it should be a good, approach to stop abusing the system or the public transportation.
The fact that they're spending time and effort on this instead of focusing on housing right now, people are using drugs on here because they have nowhere else to be. There's no other supports out there. So why are we penalizing what is a medical condition, which substance use is, instead of providing the medical support?
Now, we also talked with a guy who rides the train every day, and he's also in recovery, and he has a slightly different view.
I think it needs to happen. I actually am a recovering addict. I have been clean for 3 years.
Congrats.
So I know, thank you. I know what it's like, and it once it gets you in its grip, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who you're with. It doesn't matter if there's police around. You're gonna do it. And so I think it'll help a lot. I do think they'll have their hands full.
We also hit the streets of Old Town to talk to people addicted to drugs about why they use them on public transit. Here's what one guy had to say.
Partially because of warmth. A lot of times, especially the homeless, are getting on the train because it's freezing cold, and they're wanting to get on the train so that they don't the wind stops, so they could get a steady flame on the friggin' thing. There's very few in the way of narcotics that I haven't tried. They have no plan for actual treatment, actual care services, recovery. It's just terrify people and leave it at that.
All right, so that's what those in the community have to say about this new law. Now, just a few hours ago, TriMet's general manager, along with Multnomah County leaders, including Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell and the new district attorney, Nathan Vasquez, held a news conference to talk about how they plan to enforce it. We'll have DA Vasquez joining us for a live interview in just a minute. But let's start with the leader of TriMet for his take.
So let me be very clear. Drug use has always been against our rules here at TriMet, but however, when possession of small amounts of hard drugs was decriminalized in 2020, it resulted in unclear direction around the legal enforcement of these rules. The changes passed in the last legislative session made it clear public drug use cannot be tolerated on transit systems. Those caught using drugs on public transit vehicles now face stiff penalties. And those who qualify will have a pathway to recovery through state-funded treatment and supervision. Public transit must feel safe and accessible for everyone.
So far, in the 7 days since this new law has been in effect, there have been 0 arrests. Despite the sheriff acknowledging today that, yes, people have probably been using drugs on public transit in the past 7 days. They're asking riders to report to TriMet Security if they see people using.
Understand, it's been 5 to 7 days, and there has not been an arrest at this point. Drug use will not be tolerated on public transit, and those individuals engaging in this behavior will be held accountable. The Sheriff's Office oversees the Transit Police Division, which is comprised of approximately 21 deputy sheriffs and police officers. When incidents are reported, the nearest security team or a police officer can respond when a police intervention is necessary. We are committed to continuing to work with TriMet, the District Attorney's Office, and all of our partners to ensure a safe transit system for everyone.
TriMet officials also say their safety response team is riding transit, doing outreach to connect people with mental health and addiction services. All right, let's bring in Multnomah County's new district attorney, Nathan Vasquez. He's joining us live on his second day leading that office. Nathan, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
All right, let's jump right in. Today during that news conference, you said something that caught my attention, and that's people caught using drugs on public transit will not be offered deflection. Now, for people who don't know, that's the option of treatment over jail for those caught solely with possession, no other warrants or things like that. So Nathan, why doesn't that option apply to people using on public transit?
Well, we're talking a lot about a lot different behavior here. This isn't just simple possession. This is actually using a very dangerous substance in a confined area that is endangering other people. And it doesn't mean that because someone's not getting deflection, that they are not in some way going to be helped. And so I want to be clear about that. There's still going to be opportunities for probation, opportunities for treatment, and really opportunities to intervene and help those individuals.
So I have to ask you, though, is your stance here because that's what you think those who voted for you would want, or is it what you think is best for those violating this law?
Well, let's take it back to this is what the legislature decided. And to be clear, though, we're talking about actions which are endangering others. And so my stance is very clear. I think that individuals that are endangering, people that are trying to get to work, kids that are trying to go to school, they need to be held accountable. And they need a greater level of intervention. And this intervention doesn't mean that they're not going to get treatment. In fact, it means the opposite. We're going to be stepping in, taking actions to actually get them connected with services. So it's a higher level of intervention that I think is warranted in this situation.
And I hear you on that, but some people may see this as a way to criminalize addiction, just as the way it stands right now. What do you have to say to those folks?
Well, again, this is a decision that our state legislature made. And it's one certainly that I stand by. And it's not criminalizing the addiction. It's the behavior and the actions that people are taking. Because, we are talking about individuals that are using a very dangerous substance in a confined space with people who are just trying to get to work, people that are trying to get to school, to go about their daily lives. And, certainly when we talk about that, people have no right to really endanger the lives of others. And so when we're talking about what's been criminalized, it's the action and the behavior that is really the dangerous part here.
So today you promised to prosecute these cases. Walk us through that process from, say, the train to when it gets to your office, and then what happens from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So when an individual is caught in this behavior, taking these actions, police, in this case, it would be the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, would arrest them. They'd be brought to our local county jail. They'd be processed. A judge would potentially make a decision about whether or not they would be held or released. And then my office would review the case for criminal charges. Then, once an individual is charged, they would have a decision to make. They could certainly take it to trial. They have every right to do that. Or if they choose, they could also, decide to plead guilty, and we would work out an agreement. And in that situation, what will happen in 99% of the cases is that those individuals will be offered services and probation and an opportunity to really get connected with treatment opportunities and stability in our community. And that's when we're talking about what we want to see and what we want to do is we want to find a pathway to get someone to sobriety, to get them to a healthy life and get them back to being a productive citizen in our community.
But let's be real here. Does your office have the resources to prosecute cases like this?
Absolutely.
Or do you have to focus on, say, more serious things like felonies?
So, of course, my office is dedicated to prosecuting serious felonies and person crimes, but these are not complex cases. When we're talking about this, and in particular with TriMet, we're 99% of these are going to be on video. Officers are going to be on scene, and we're going to put these cases together, and we can handle them, and we will.
All right, Nathan, thank you for joining us. We will definitely be watching how all of this unfolds.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so what are your thoughts after hearing from the Multnomah County DA about this new law? Do you think it will help curb drug use on public transit, especially here on TriMet? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. All right, while we're on the topic of public transit, let's switch to a hot button issue north of the Columbia River. The plan to extend light rail from Portland into Vancouver across the new I-5 bridge. Clark County Public Transit, also known as CTRAN, is experiencing some sticker shock over what that plan could cost them in the future. The cost of building it is not CTRAN's problem. That's part of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, and the IBR team is pursuing a $1 billion federal transit grant to help cover it. But once it's up and running, sometime around 2033 is the latest estimate, CTRAN is going to be on the hook for some of the operation and maintenance costs, and that's not a position they wanted to be in. Light rail is a touchy subject in Clark County, so when CTRAN's board approved IBR's light rail plan 2 years ago, they added a condition. They would not pick up any of the operations and maintenance tab. But the board softened its stance in November to say they may help with funding. Still not a yes, but they're willing to talk about it. But at the following board meeting in December, staff presented IBR's proposal for how to split the bill after it was up and running, as well as an early estimate of the cost of running light rail over the new bridge, just over $20 million per year. Well, that did not go over so well.
Scott, I'm trying to take this seriously, but it's hard for me. That number seems, I'm sorry, it seems, I don't know how they can say it without a smile on their face. It seems so outrageous.
All right, now fare revenue makes up for some of it, and everything south of the state line is TriMet's responsibility, including about 55% of the extension to Vancouver. So CTRAN's bill after that would be more like $6.8 million per year. But that's still a lot of money, and CTRAN's board members pressed staff to explain why it costs so much to run just 1 mile, this single mile of light rail. Well, apparently a lot of it comes down to frequency. The IBR team expects the MAX yellow line to become a lot busier once people can take a one-seat ride all the way from Vancouver to Portland. So their plan calls for a train every 6 or 7 minutes in each direction, double the frequency of the yellow line today. The cost of running all those trains adds up, even for just 1 mile. But the board members were not thrilled about the frequency plan either.
I mean, it's $6.8 million. Even if you want to talk about, yeah, they're going to be there every 6 minutes. I mean, that's a service that, is a little bit above and beyond what we're doing, a lot of bit above and beyond what we're doing right now. I'm sorry. I'm really having sticker shock here.
I'm just really shocked by this. I would prefer us concentrating on CTRAN and how to benefit CTRAN with how we could expand rapid bus system with us on our side. This to me kind of looks to be CTRAN subsidizing TriMet.
So if CTRAN did decide to chip in, which is not set in stone yet, how exactly would they pay for it? Well, you'll be thrilled with this. Raise taxes. Washington law allows public transit agencies to impose local sales taxes of up to 0.9% to fund their operations. And CTRAN only collects 0.7% right now, so legally they have room to raise it. Washington law also allows for a separate high-capacity transit sales tax that can be stacked on top of the regular transit tax. CTRAN does not currently use that, but if it's for light rail, they could start. But here's where it gets extra tricky. Hiking either tax would require voter approval, and Clark County voters have a long and arguably proud tradition of rejecting light rail, usually by overwhelming margins. In this case, the taxes would only apply to CTRAN's service area, so only voters in that area would get to weigh in, meaning Vancouver and others like Battleground and Ridgefield, plus a couple big suburbs like Hazeldale, not all of Clark County. And those seem like parts of the county that might be more receptive to light rail, but not receptive enough. How do we know? Because we've seen this play out before. When light rail was planned to come over as part of the Columbia River crossing back in 2012, CTRAN asked voters in its service area for a 0.1% sales tax increase to cover operations and maintenance. More than half of voters who weighed in, 56%, voted against that. And that's actually a much closer result than any of the times when all of Clark County has been asked to weigh in on light rail. But still, it's a pretty solid no. C-Tran staff noticed that the agency could choose to limit the second sales tax, the high-capacity transit one, to an even smaller area, basically just the city of Vancouver. Now, that might be a safer bet to find light rail-friendly voters, but it did not sound like it would be the board's first choice. Vancouver's mayor, who chairs the C-Tran board, pushed hard for C-Tran to ask the Washington legislature to step in.
We could start talking to the legislators about how they're going to fund this very unique bi-state transit that happens nowhere else in the state of Washington. There is nothing along the Idaho border. There is nothing else along the Canadian border. There is nothing along the Oregon border except for this, where the state of Washington shares transit with another state.
C-Tran still has about 3 years to figure this out and this funding plan out, according to staff. But the sooner the better in theory if you want light rail, because a clear financial plan is one of the things the feds will be looking for when they consider whether or not to give the bridge project a $1 billion transit grant to build light rail in the first place. All right, so we know some of you in Vancouver cannot wait to write into us. Maybe you've already started, but let us know what you think about the light rail plan and possible efforts to raise a local sales tax to help pay for it. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, coming up next on The Story, Portland's new city councilors got an update on the county-led homelessness response action plan today. Basically, what is being done about the homeless crisis. The county has some lofty goals, and it seems some important metrics are missing from the current plan. We'll explain when The Story returns. Here in the city of Portland, new Mayor Keith Wilson has walked back a plan to bring city employees back to the office 4 days a week, keeping the 3-day-a-week requirement that's been held over from former Mayor Ted Wheeler. Wilson floated the plan during a meeting with hundreds of city employees last month, but it was not well received, and the power of labor unions was quick to rear its head. Devin Haskins has been following this for us today. Devin, let's start with those unions. What'd they tell you?
I talked with two union presidents who are also city employees, and they say much of the work that city employees do doesn't require in-office work. So when the news came out that they would be asked to return to work 4 days a week, that caught many of them off guard because it would also impact their personal lives. For the last year and a half, they've been allowed to work 20 hours a week in the office, or about 3 days a week, after Mayor Wheeler made that announcement back in April of 2023. According to one of the union presidents, they took a survey of their members, and they said that if a change was made to the remote or hybrid work policy, that more than 50% of them would look for new work.
I'm curious to know what that in-office work means. All right, how about Mayor Wilson? What did he say about all of this?
Yeah, we tried to talk with Mayor Wilson, but his staff said he was unavailable, and instead they sent a statement saying that the reason behind this is because of budget constraints and his continued effort to focus on ending homelessness. But they did say that that still is the plan, to have employees return to work more days a week than they currently are, and said that they'll release more in the coming weeks.
All right, interesting. Devin Haskins in downtown Portland tonight. Devin, thank you. Today, the new Portland City Council heard from Multnomah County on their homelessness response action plan. They want to shelter or house nearly 2,700 people by the end of the year, but it's been a point of contention among former county commissioners and former city commissioners, who at one point floated a plan to break up the partnership and stop sending city dollars to the county for homelessness. That effort was paused by the old government, leaving it up to the new council to decide on any changes. This afternoon, councilors heard a brief overview of where the county is in their homeless response. The county says the plan is on track and that they've met or exceeded many of the goals they made as part of the plan. But city councilors had a lot of questions. For instance, one of the plan's goals is to prevent homelessness among people aging out of the foster care system. You see it a lot, or people leaving hospitals or jails. But the county doesn't actually have a good way of tracking those people.
We're not starting from a blank page on any of this, but there are a lot of unanswered questions, and one of them is, how big is the problem? And I think we're closest to knowing how big the problem is for youth foster care, but in terms of the exit from carceral settings and exits from healthcare settings, yeah, it's not a blank page. They are working on it, but being able to answer the question of how big that problem is, that's not something we're currently able to answer.
They say the county is working on it.
Some hospital systems are able to give us pretty good data about the number of folks they think they're discharging, either to a shelter or sometimes to the street. Other hospital systems have less of that data readily available. And so we're starting with that sort of cloudier picture of it's in this broad range and starting to really work down to actionable numbers and populations.
Now, another piece of the plan has to do with increasing the supply of housing, including converting empty buildings into housing in Portland. The county says that some conversions are underway, and the city helped start 2 of those projects in Old Town. But some building owners are hitting snags.
And last I checked, there were 17 individual buildings that had come to the city to ask for help and direction. I'm not sure any of them have figured out how to get across that financial finish line as of this moment. I don't know if...
No, I don't think they're across the finish line, but they are in active conversation. So it'll be a part of, okay, what options do we have for funding, pulling it all together, and the city assisting them in that process and seeing whether it pencils, just to be frank.
City councilors had some other questions. Loretta Smith wanted to change the way race was reported in order to meet culturally specific needs among homeless people. And Steve Novick wants to look at what other cities are doing, like whether Portland has too many steps involved when it comes to housing production. Mayor Keith Wilson and some members of City Council will eventually join the county's steering committee for the Homelessness Response Action Plan. Lots of committees here. We'll keep you posted on how it evolves. All right, we're back right after this. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, you can stream the story on your own schedule. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. And enjoy your Tuesday night. We have an update out of the Oregon State Hospital and a new legal motion filed by the group Disability Rights Oregon leading tomorrow's show. You don't want to miss it. Tomorrow night at 6:30. Good night.